Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday. Well, happy not in Buffalo, but maybe in other places. We're here. We have some things to discuss, but we'll start with the pre-show. You start with yours, Russ, and I'll go to mine.
Okay. So I lost the date, but in the next few weeks, if you're unvaccinated in the NBA, you will not be able to cross the Canadian border and play in Canada. So
Right.
Kyrie Irving, no, and whoever else is unvaccinated, no. And so, and again, look, it's only one team there, but wins are wins are wins, and this could be an issue for some.
Well, there seems to be a school of thought regarding Kyrie because we know he's one of these players, and okay, I don't follow the NBA that much, but I listen to other people who follow it religiously and cover it religiously. And the thought about Kyrie Irving is he doesn't like basketball. He's great at it, but he doesn't like it. And we've seen instances in the past where he's taken 20 games off for Black Lives Matter or social justice or whatever. And they seem to think that he'll get the shot eventually, and probably, in the second half of the season. But right now he doesn't need it because he's got big money and whatever. So I don't know. I mean,
but there's probably other players that are unvaccinated.
Well, I mean, Bertuzzi couldn't cross over the Canadian border, and he's unvaccinated, so I think that's already in place.
No. It's not already in place. It's new. And Bertuzzi, I think, finally did get vaccinated.
No, he's still the only one
unvaccinated.
Yeah, he's the only one.
Then he won't be able to cross because it's going to be a Canadian law that you, in order to be able to compete, you have to be vaccinated.
Now, what I'm going to be curious about as somebody who crosses the border frequently, knock on wood, is whether the Canadian government will consider it being fully vaccinated if you've had just the 2 shots or if you've had the booster.
Well, they have until January 15th. Let me see if it mentions that.
So, while you look that up, I'll talk about my.
It says vaccine, so you have to at least receive one of Canada's approved vaccines.
Yes. So, but that could be the 1-shot Johnson & Johnson. That could be the 2-shot Moderna or Pfizer. It could be AstraZeneca. But then, okay, if it's any of those, do you need to get the booster? And I'm planning on getting the booster this week because, I'm in my 50s and I have pre-existing conditions and I want to cross the border. I need to do it to do my job. But I don't know. Some people don't want to get it at all. So the
ones that don't get it at all are probably not going to be allowed in Canada.
Yeah. Now, last night, and I didn't talk it up that much because I had a foreboding feeling regarding the Bills game against New England, and the weather contributed to. I think if the weather had been better, that the Bills would have had a better chance to win. And I'm so sick and tired of oh my God, Bill Belichick is a genius. The winds were 50 miles an hour. He had a quarterback who's inexperienced, so he ran every play except 3.
Right.
So
they have the best running game in football. So you knew.
And one of the running backs was hurt. The one that ran the 70-yard touchdown. He got hurt his hamstring. I put it on the Bills in terms of them losing because they had opportunities. They had two chances in the red zone in the last 7-8 minutes of the fourth quarter and could, try to kick a field goal against a 50-mile-an-hour wind, and then
I saw that.
It's completely asinine. And I
heard Mike call this live. It was an interesting call live. People should have heard it.
Well, yeah. So let's just say if YouTube's personal or terms of service would have made this a blue video, it would have been like an episode of Deadwood.
It would have been like Deadwood calling a football game. Yeah. I will say this, Mike, from having watched the highlights and everything else, the thing I came away with the most was post game. There were two guys from the defensive backfield.
You just read my mind. Well, and I wanted to bring this up because it affects all of us in terms of reporters. Mm-hmm. Jerry Sullivan, who I worked with on the radio locally in Buffalo, he is a an opinionated columnist. He's really good. He's like sort of like Steve Simmons in Toronto.
He's been at it for a long time.
Yeah, a long time. Like Mike Lupica in New York. Not a provocateur, but he asks the tough questions and he expects to get the tough answers. And when you're a team that's supposed to have a defense that's capable of winning a Super Bowl, his question was, are you embarrassed at the fact that you lost to a team that threw the ball 3 times? And these two safeties, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, they were like, well, I'll remember this in terms of the question that was being asked and how it was being asked.
Well, the one guy that said it, the guy who was sitting to the left.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I'm just saying,
but
he was just like, I'm going to remember this.
Yeah, okay. And this is the thing. We're all subject right now to the limitations of teams and their, what they want to do in terms of availability to the press. They couch it as COVID restrictions. I'm thankful for any bit of access that I can get right now. Mm-hmm. So are we all. But we do know, and I do get the feeling that some of these organizations, like NFL teams, are hiding behind COVID restrictions to limit access to the media, to limit the ability of them to ask tough questions. And in this instance, where this team is expected to compete for a Super Bowl and they're 7-5 and they've lost to fucking Jacksonville and Pittsburgh and Indianapolis and Tennessee and now New England. So they have no tiebreakers. They could very well miss the playoffs. And I said on Twitter today, Russ, I think it's better for the organization that they miss the playoffs. They're not going to win the Super Bowl without Tre'Davious White as they're in their defensive backfield, and they get a higher draft pick. And there are things wrong with this team that need to be fixed. And I think they make the playoffs and say, oh, well, we lost on the road. Oh, what was, no. You need to make the changes. They need to upgrade the offensive line, the defensive line. That may only happen if they miss the playoffs.
No, I can't disagree with you. I think you're right. But as far as the question, I thought it was a legitimate question.
Oh, it was a legitimate question, and they got all fluffled for no reason. Why? Because there's a little truth there. You should be embarrassed losing to that team, doing the things that you did anyway. Okay. All right. Let's start the show. I've vented. Hello, hockey world. Today is Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor.
I don't know how do I seriously, there's nowhere I could go. I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
That's all you had to say. And I'm not going to say I'm Admiral Yamamoto. I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, let's start with some of the games last night. Why don't we just start with this one, Russ, because it was the first game of Bruce Boudreau in Vancouver. The Canucks win 4-0 over the LA Kings. Elias Pettersson gets a goal. Thatcher Demko, I think it was a 30-save shutout. A good first start for a coach, like we said yesterday, who has a reputation of turning things around quickly.
Yeah, opening up the ice, letting the offense roll a bit, letting the boys play. That's what they need. They have guys who could score on that team. Their defense is okay. Their goaltending is really good. So they have some elements. They need to get back into this. The way they're going to get back into this is by waking up the offense. So I think Boudreau is going to do the right thing there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in terms of the management of the team, but I think Boudreau will settle things down, and I think try to get these players online and producing. Besser as well, like Funky in the chat said.
They'll focus on him. They won't focus on the other things. He'll distract them from that, and that's good. Boudreau's really good at that. He's a big voice.
Yeah, and he will effectively cover for his team. I mean, he's good with the media. He's been a member of the media with NHL Network. He's good with the media. He's well liked. I think that will provide a little bit of humor and distraction for the team. But in the end, it's up for the players on the ice, and he'll try to give them proper structure And not to say that Travis Green didn't, but it just was stale and didn't work. And there may be changes down the line. We don't know who the general manager is going to be, but
the guys who scored are the guys you need. Besser, Garland, Miller. Pedersen gets an assist. That's what you need to happen. Horvat gets an assist. That's what you need. You need those guys to be awakened. You need them to be playing at the top of their game, and had to start now. So good for him. That's the way you started off.
Yeah. So now
you talk about the way that you don't want to start it off.
Right. A good first step for Vancouver. On the other side of the spectrum, a bad first. A bad first step for Mike Yeo, the interim head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, who give up 4 goals in the first period to Colorado, 7 goals overall in the period. The game ends up 7-5. Not exactly a stellar defensive performance by the Flyers. Annunen, the goaltender for Colorado, gets his first NHL victory.
He wasn't great, and you knew he wouldn't be great.
No, you were there, Russ. So what was the general feeling about the Flyers?
So I'll give you my feeling, because I think my feeling's different than the general feeling. So, as you said with the goalie, you knew you should shoot on him a lot early, right? So they did get some early goals on him. But the problem was for the Flyers, as Colorado kept scoring goals, he got more confidence. The young goalie got more confidence because he saw that he had like a world-class offense there, and all he had to do was sort of just, maintain the game, manage the game. And he did a fair job of that after. I mean, Scott Lawton's shorthanded goal was a thing of beauty, so that's one of those things that's just hard to stop. But everybody should watch the Cale Makar goal, because A, very few guys could pull it off, but B, you have to do a lot of standing around and watching to have that pulled off against you. And that is still a problem with the Flyers. I know Mike Yeo is trying hard. He wants to be hard to play against. You have to have the right personnel for that. There are guys, I'm going to tell you, the worst part of this game was the first power play, and I'm thinking, all right, they're finally going to put JVR in the right position. JVR played up high on the left side, Mike. He never was near the net. So my thinking now is that's by design. And they don't even want to even fight with him to go to the net or whatever. They just want to get something out of him. So now that's his position up there. Maybe that'll change, but that's a bad first step. And I got to tell you, for a guy who's largely invisible.
Yeah, playing him on the half wall is absolutely asinine. He's a down. Okay, if you want to put him in the bumper position or in front of the net, fine, because he's big and he can do that.
At least he can get to the net from the bumper position.
And he's good in close. But putting him away from the net is just dumb. I mean, who are they putting in front of the net? Who are they putting in the bumper?
Really, nobody goes there. There were a couple of guys there for a few seconds, but largely nobody. JVR's got 6 points in 23 games. He has 2 goals. He is averaging 16 minutes a game. Just imagine other guys in the league who get 16 minutes of ice time, what they could actually do with that. Now, another problem is Kevin Hayes is really showing that he's either got a lot of scar tissue or he just came back not 100%. He did have a nice assist, don't get me wrong. He could pass the puck. But when you're asking him to shoot the puck now, Mike, he has to take an extra second and a half to get that shot off, and it gets blocked every time. So that now is another big cog. To me, it's if you have him on the power play, he's literally on the power play just to pass. And they already have enough guys that pass on the power play, but they're kind of they're stuck in that spot in a way because they're a little bit short of talent. They just are. This is the first time a Flyers team doesn't have the same talent as other teams in the division. And if you remember preseason, we talked about the Metro and said everybody's gotten better. Everybody, and we weren't just giving lip service. Everybody got better. So we knew this would be a tough year in the Metro. I didn't pick the Flyers for the playoffs because they had so many new spots. They all had to work out for them to make it. And for a little glimpse of the early part of the season, it looked like that could happen. And then, of course, the season gets involved and injuries and everything else, and it's not happened. So now the organizational depth has been tested. The team is not playing the way you want them. I don't know how long that's going to take to turn that around. There's no real risk of benching anybody because there's nobody really that you're bringing up except for the same 2 or 3 players. Lehigh Valley is the worst team in the AHL. You brought up Ian LePerrier and you put him on the bench. I don't know. Is he going to be on the bench next game against the Devils? If he is, it's almost like a reward that you could walk away from your AHL team while that's failing. How about NHL team? But again, I don't think that's great precedent to set either. I think they need to bring in at least one coach from the outside and put him on the bench. Even if that coach you don't believe is going to be your head coach, you've got to have a different voice in there. And I don't understand what the holdup is. Like, they got Boudreau very quickly in Vancouver, and Chuck Fletcher's got nobody very quickly in Philly yet.
Well, I mean, maybe it's a recognition that he's not good in terms of developing talent, that he's moved to an assistant's role. Maybe they think he can.
That was his previous role. Like, why would you want it? Here's all right. I
can't explain it. All I'm saying, maybe from their point of view, that's what it is. And now they bring in somebody who can be a better developmental guy with Lehigh. It's a recognition that it's just not working there. So,
yeah, but you realize that it is rewarding a guy for having a bad season. We're going to rescue you from this.
Well, I mean,
and he's the same voice. It's not like he's a different voice. These are all the same voices that have been around this team. You need a different voice. Even if you're going to go and hire Rick Tocchet in a week, you still need different voices there.
Well, that's the question that is hanging over this right now, is that whether this is a permanent hire. And if it's a permanent hire, then I think that essentially Comcast is telling Chuck Fletcher, okay, we're going to give you this, but the next guy to go might be you. If we stick with Yo, if they say, okay, no, that's not the case, we're going to go with somebody who we like or whatever, and he has to accept it, then he's sort of a caretaker GM. And I think a lot of the power, in a way, goes to that coach, whoever it is. I mean,
no, there is another scenario here.
Okay,
so I do think they're giving Chuck his chance with Yo because of reasons I explained yesterday. We talked with Kevin and X. So now, if this doesn't work, remember Dean Lombardi's been with the team for years now, ever since he left the Kings. Dean Lombardi could step in as an interim GM or as the next GM and hire his coach too,
or as a team president, as we've seen, yes. He doesn't have to take all the slings and arrows upon himself. He can do what Jeff Gorton is doing in Montreal, and then hire a general manager to do the legwork.
But that is a pivotal move there.
Yeah, it's possible. That's
where Fletcher's got a lot of pressure on him, because there is a guy like that there that is lurking. That
can step in the interim, but I mean, it's not like there's nobody there that has never been a general manager to handle something. So
correct. Now, again, if Fletcher wants to keep saying I'm working the phones, great, but it's hard to do anything this time of year, so nobody thinks you're going to get anything done. So the next best thing you could do is upgrade your management, and they haven't done it. Like Mike, I think they're playing tomorrow against the Devils, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have thought they would have brought somebody else in by now? So you may be right. It may be LePerrier again, but again, it may all be temporary. Like Mike Yo may even get called away after this trip and say, we appreciate you trying, but now we've hired a coach, and that coach is going to, bring in different assistants, and maybe Mike gets to stay around for the rest of the year because he is good, but maybe he doesn't. And that's where they're at right now. Nothing is set in stone. And so from a player's perspective, mentally, they're not all there. They're not. They could tell us they're trying. They could tell us they were affected by the coach being fired and all of that, but none of them are pissed off enough to do anything about it. Claude Giroux is the only one. Claude Giroux came out. He said the other day, he said, you know what? We need to win this game for our fans, for us. We need to get things rolling the right way. He came out of the game, house on fire. He gets the first goal. He gets points on the board. Mostly the rest of the team flatlines for a lot of that game.
Do you think that Vigneault's contract, which I think is 2 years remaining at $5 million, will be a factor at all in whether they hire a new coach or not?
It's a factor. We'll see. So here's the complicated equation. If you keep losing, less fans show up. They're not full for games now. So what's the limit to how empty you want to see the stands go as to trying to save money by, let's say, keeping Yo in there because you're already paying him and you don't want to pay another salary on the books this year. Mm-hmm. That is and you also risk someone hiring Tocchet too, or Quinn, and then, next year or in the summer, you're in even worse shape. So that is the complicated equation, and they know the breakdown, monetarily wise. So it's a tough call. Me, I would make the change. I'm a corporation. That's why you're a corporation. You're going to have to just suffer this loss right now, but know that the gains are around the corner if you become a better team again. But let's be realistic here, Mike. This is a tough call now to turn this around. It doesn't matter what coach comes in. It's going to be hard to, in this division, continuing to lose games.
They're lucky. They're lucky that they have the Islanders to look down at.
Right. I mean, that's which nobody really thought, and we could talk about them too. But at the end of the day, I look at this and I say they need to rebuild. They need to rebuild in the worst way. They're not going to retool. They're not. I mean, rebuild, retool, but they're not going to do a stripped down, full rebuild. They won't. So it'll be a retool. That's the word I meant to use.
And honestly, if you look at the parallels between the two teams that just made coaching changes or general manager changes, they have that in common. They will not do a rebuild.
No.
The
one smart thing is, and they took the best coach on the market away from the other team that needed him.
But the Aquilinis, and I didn't see the presser yesterday, and I don't care what lip service they pay. Over the years, the Aquilinis have consistently said, no, let's address it with free agency. Let's sign Antoine Roussel. Let's sign Jay Beagle. Let's sign Braden Holtby as a backup. It's absolutely asinine. If they now you can say that they got good talent in the draft without tanking. Yeah, they did. Quinn Hughes is a great young player. So is Pettersson. So is Besser. I think that's one of the only aspects of Jim Benning's job that he did well was talent recognition in the draft. But every trade with them under Benning was a disaster. Almost every free agent signing was an unmitigated disaster. So, I mean, and they would have been better off had they just built through the draft and developed slowly. But that market is impatient. So is Philadelphia. This is the thing. I keep coming back to Toronto. I'll give Toronto the credit. The market said, we're ready for a rebuild. And in 2014 and 2015 and 2016, they did it. And now they're benefiting. Now, they haven't won a playoff series. We know that. But they have one of the best players in the league in Matthews. Nylander is a very good player who they got 8th overall in 2014. Marner is an excellent player. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. Yep. So they had Morgan Riley from a previous draft. Their core is 80% are players they drafted.
Yeah. I mean, end of the day, I'll sum it up like this for the Flyers. If they decide they're going to retool, they have to decide if Chuck Fletcher's the guy to retool them, because I'm not sure he is.
Right. In other games last night, a couple shootouts. Senators beat the Devils 3-2 in a shootout. Capitals beat the Anaheim Ducks 4-3 in a shootout. Dallas remains red hot. They beat the Coyotes 4-1. And Pittsburgh lays a whooping on Seattle 6-1. Just talking about the Stars. I mean, I think I mentioned this after he had to drop off yesterday. Ben Bishop is playing an AHL conditioning stint. They're rolling right now, and the last thing that they need is a cap issue
But
And
he's coming up, man. There's nothing they can do about it.
well, they may have to give away Khudobin.
They will. But again, it still doesn't give a spot for Ottinger. Now, again, the team's rolling, so it's fine. But then they're going to roll with Holtby and Bishop because they're not going to be able to do anything with Bishop. They're not going to buy him out.
Well, I mean, and I'm not saying there's wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
You can look at the buyout. I don't think they'll buy him out.
Well, they can't buy him out this season. There's no
right. They can't do it in season.
But the only thing here is whether he passes the medical, whether he says, okay, you can play. If they say no,
well, pass the medical.
Well, I mean,
there's one thing about Ben Bishop. He always passes the medical, and then 2 weeks later, always gets hurt.
Well,
Tony Soprano, listen, Tony, you could say you don't need Ben Bishop, but there's nothing you could do about it. There's nothing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if he's healthy, then if you waive him, you only can bury a little over $1 million. Right now, I don't believe Khudobin is hurt, but right now it's Ottinger and Holtby. And if Khudobin is hurt, let me know, guys, in the chat. I mean, I don't know for sure. I can check Cap Friendly. They would have it here. Hold on a second. I love when we do live stuff here.
Yeah, just listen. I'm going to just tell Tony Soprano, just like the end of the series right now, when you talk about Ben Bishop, it's going to fade to black, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. So right now, they have 3 goaltenders. They're all healthy. Khudobin, Holtby, Ottinger. They're collectively making about a little over $6 million. Bishop makes 4.9 by himself. They're right at the cap right now, with Bishop on LTIR. If they have to activate him and waive him, they only limit themselves, mitigate their the amount by $1.025 million. So they'd be almost $4 million over the cap. How do you take care of that? Well, I mean, are you going to trade? I mean, even if you trade Khudobin, he's only 3.3. Then you'd have to send somebody down to the minors. So it's really, they're Jim Nill.
It's going to take 2 players to keep Ben Bishop on the roster. That's what it boils down to.
And I don't think Ben Bishop has any value on the trade market if he is healthy, for one simple reason: he could not be healthy in one fell swoop. And he's got another year.
The other year is a killer.
The other year is a killer for him, and the other year is a killer for Khudobin. So now here's an interesting thing I just heard this morning. Apparently the St. Louis Blues, and again, the NHL, they really, I really question what they're doing in terms of the cap and COVID situations. Robert Thomas may have to sit out for St. Louis tonight because they can't stay under the cap. They need cap relief. And now I'm looking up to what Thomas is not on his ELC anymore, so he's making $2.8 million. So does that mean that there's, are they sending him to the minors and clearing $1 million? But I think he's got, they would never put him on waivers if there was a risk of him getting claimed. But they're going to go with 17 skaters because they can't they're not under the cap. So, I mean, and this is all because of COVID situations. And the NHL, I mean, right now with like goaltending situations, with injury situations, with COVID, they are not allowing any flexibility whatsoever because of what's going on. And I think if you're having to have emergency goaltenders play because you can't, I know that there are emergency exemptions because of injury, but they seem to really be taking a hard line on this.
Yeah. And, again, it's hard enough to win a Stanley Cup, and now you have to battle against that too. It's just something else that you have to battle against. It's hard. Yeah.
Frank Cirelli reported this morning that the IIHF, in their infinite wisdom, have decided to allow the Chinese hockey team to participate in the Olympics. Okay. They are in the group with Germany, the U.S., and Canada.
Oh my God.
So, okay. Even if the U.S. and Canada play their third string goaltender and all the guys who are the extras, if they don't win these games 25-0, and remember, goal differential is for seeding, so they're going to lay a can of open up a can of whoop ass on China. Yeah, you know what?
It's going to be worse than Japan. It's going to be.
They'll probably end up like Brad Pitt in that one movie with Robert Redford where he ends up in a Chinese prison. They'll put the U.S. and the Canadian Olympic hockey team in prison if they lay a whooping on China like they normally do. They may put it in first gear, Russ, just to preserve their own safety.
No, they won't do that. But I don't know who they're going to have on their team. I mean, even the guy the Islanders drafted, I don't believe has ever played.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I
played for Cornell, and I don't think he's even played for Cornell because Cornell's really good.
Now, weren't some of these players supposedly playing for the Kunlun Red Star in the KHL?
I think that's where they're going to get some of them from.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I mean, they could have put Norway in there. Norway would have been killed, but Norway would have at least been. They know how to play hockey, and at least it would have been respectable. It's not Cliff Poo. No, I think Tony is being funny here. What are you making a poo platter joke or something?
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on, be serious. Now the big news injury wise came out of Toronto. Today, Russ, the Leafs, who, other than the early injuries to Austin Matthews, had, they lost Mrazek for a month. Wall has filled in pretty well. Ilya Mikheyev has been hurt since preseason. They've been able to weather that, but now they lose two defensemen in one game against Winnipeg. Rasmus Sandin, the news was better than expected, 2 to 3 weeks with a knee injury. Travis Dermott suffered a shoulder injury, so he's out. They didn't specify how long. They just said his injury is better than Mitch Marner's, who, after colliding with Jake Muzzin in practice, is out 3 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury. So it's got to be some sort of separation. Because
I do have an update, Mike. So yeah. I know I hate to interrupt the Leaf talk. Andong Song, who the Islanders drafted 172nd overall in 2015, played as high as Madison in the USHL in 2018. He's 24. Maybe he'll be on the team. I don't know. He had 1 goal in 48 games.
And that could be their best player.
No. He had 1 goal in 48 games. Somebody on Kunlun Red Star is better.
Okay. But getting back to the important stuff, the Leaf talk. So Marner is out 3 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury. Dermott and Sandin are out. They have called up Alex Steeves, who I think we discussed earlier.
Yeah, I'll say one thing about Steeves. So, are they bringing him up to sort of fill the Marner role?
No.
Okay, that's smart because he's more of a scorer than a passer. He's a guy that he has good speed, and a lot of times he gets behind the defense, but somebody's going to have to spring him. And otherwise, he's good around the net. But who's he going to play with that's going to do that?
He's playing on the fourth line with Kyle Clifford and Pierre Engvall. So there's
zero chance of that happening. So the only way he's going to score is if they control the puck and he's around the net and he gets to shoot that way. But it's not going to be because he's getting behind the defense and gets a breakaway.
No. Now they're anticipating the suspension of Jason Spezza. He's having his hearing as we speak.
Yeah, that was dirty. I saw it.
Yeah, but
it was a hit on Sandin, by the way. That was not only intentional, but probably deserved worse too.
Well, and I think the reason that the suspension was only 2 games for Neil Pionk was because Sandin's injury was 2 to 3 weeks. Had he blown out his ACL, I think the suspension would have been longer. But this okay, you say that hockey players don't have long memories. Here you go. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of this. Rasmus Sandin hit Blake Wheeler late last season in a regular season game with a Nicholas Kronwall double cheek check when Wheeler was going into the corner. Sandin sort of stopped short and hit him. Completely clean hit. Wiped Wheeler out. Was one of the best hits the Leafs threw all year last year. I'm sure the Jets remember that. Pionk, who had a big confrontation with Mitch Marner last year, he hits Sandin and then Spezza in retaliation because there was no penalty at all on that play. Spezza goes in and wipes out Pionk, and there was no penalty on that call. The refereeing in that game was abysmal, and when you have, and it happened the same night, Adrian Kempe hitting McDavid and McDavid responding by slamming him into the wall and getting a 5 in a game for boarding because the referee didn't call the original penalty. In this instance, they didn't call the original penalty on Pionk, and then Spezza has to retaliate. Spezza's probably going to get, since he has a reputation of not being a dirty player, he might skate the 5 games, but he's at least going to get 2 or 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And without Marner in the lineup, they're going to miss Spezza because he provides some offense as a fourth line guy. So, the long and the short of it, and I saw Ken Campbell and a few other people, if the referees do their job and call the penalty, the original penalty, then there's no incident. Now, March 31st, it's appointment television, folks. Winnipeg at Toronto. Prepare for a bloodbath because there are enough veteran guys on that Leaf team like Clifford and Simmons. They'll remember Neil Pionk, and mark my words, they'll go after him.
So I do have an update, Mike. I'm looking at Kunlun Red Star.
Okay.
So Spencer Fu and Parker Fu, brothers, do play for them. They are Canadian, but they're playing for this team. So I kind of wonder if they get the dispensation. They're pretty decent players. Spencer Fu is leading the team.
He was drafted, or he was signed by Calgary, I think.
Yeah, I think it was. I remember him with Union. I'm pretty sure he won when Union won it all, like with Gostisbehere. I'm pretty sure he was on that team. Yeah, Calgary. So he's a pretty good player. He's got 11 goals. His brother's not bad. He's not as good as he is. They do have Brandon Yip. If you remember Brandon Yip.
From Nashville, I believe.
Yeah. So he is second on the team in scoring. And, yeah, it's Nashville. No, it's Colorado.
Colorado.
Before. He did play for Nashville, though.
Okay, that's where I remember him from.
He's 30-something years old, 34, something like that. So they have him. And so here's where this team gets interesting, though. So Jake Chelios is on this team. And Ryan Sproul. You remember Ryan Sproul, the defenseman.
Oh, yeah.
And Alex Ritchie. I think that's another Ritchie, like Brett Ritchie and Nick Ritchie.
I'm not so sure. Well, I'll look it up because I don't know that. Let's see.
Let's see who else they have here that I recognize. Ethan Werrick. Ethan Werrick was with the Rangers a long time ago.
Did you say Alex Ritchie?
Alex Ritchie. Oh, yeah, he's different. You know where he's from that I know him? From Princeton. He played in Princeton and actually played like second line for them as center, but again, never made it to the NHL. But he's a pretty good goal scorer for Princeton. Right. Also, yeah, so Ethan Werrick's got to be in his 30s because he was with the Rangers and they traded him. I'm trying to get his. Yeah, he's 30, and the Rangers drafted him in 2009. So he's been all over the place. So they might get a few goals. They might.
We'll take some questions in the chat before we end the show.
So what about how long is Marner on the IR for?
3 to 4. They said 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So, realistically, the rest of December, and December is a busy month for the Leafs, like it's a busy month for everybody with the Olympic break. So, they're going to keep the Tavares line the same and basically shuffle around different wingers with Matthews and Bunting. Simmons will play a little bit. They'll probably move up Kasha at times. So yeah. All right. Let me ask. So Flamester's asking, do I see the Leafs going after a forward now that Marner is out? No, I don't, because I think they think that they have enough offense to survive. I do think, though, that now the guy I didn't mention, and I'm not expecting this guy to be a star or anything like that with them, but they've long liked Kristins Rubins, who is a Latvian defenseman who played for Medicine Hat in the WHL. They signed him on an AHL deal. He's been one of their developmental projects. Big kid, played in Newfoundland, played with the Marlies, earned an NHL contract. He's 6'5", 225 pounds. He moves pretty decently. He's going to play on the bottom pairing. He's going to get an opportunity the next 2-3 weeks. It's either him or they're playing Alex Biega, and Alex Biega is just a veteran sort of plug. So they're going to give Rubens and Liljegren a big opportunity on the bottom pairing, and this could be
a big shot for Liljegren.
Yeah, and I think Liljegren has played well. So I mean, I have
what I've seen, it looks like he's doing what you'd want him to do.
Yes, and they
and actually, to be honest, he's got more ability than just a bottom pairing guy in the future.
Yeah. I think that you could see, if Justin Hall has another bad game or two, you could see Liljegren moved up to the pairing with Muzzin, and Hall moved down. But the point that I was making was that, I know that Elliot Friedman mentioned on 32 Thoughts and on Jeff Merrick's show that the Leafs may want to address defense before the deadline. They don't have a lot of cap space, so it might be an in and out situation, or a team retaining salary, but that they see an opportunity here again. And he believes that Dubas will keep pushing it in terms of getting somebody to come in and help. I don't think it's going to be anybody who's making a ton of money, but we'll see.
So we should talk about who was picked up on waivers, right?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Good entree. So Cale Clay got picked up by the Canadians. Looks like the Flyers put a waiver claim in on him, but again, the curse for the Flyers is you're a bad team, but you're not bad enough to get a guy like this because Montreal's worse than you. And so now we'll see. We'll see what Cale Clay can do. It will be interesting to see if he can produce where he couldn't really produce or stay in the lineup for the Kings. We couldn't understand it. We kept talking about it. I've watched him play. I don't think there's a huge drop-off of what I thought he should be. So now we'll find out. I mean, is it the ideal place for him to play? No. But at least he's going to get playing time.
Yeah. Thomas says, will Lou make a trade before Christmas break, or is the playoffs unrealistic? I don't think – it's getting to the point where the playoffs are unrealistic.
Close.
Yeah, you broke up there. What were you saying?
Okay. Getting close for it to be unrealistic. But if Lou can make a trade, he'll make one. But this is a hard time of the year to make one. Fletcher's been trying too. They're not going to trade in division. I can tell you that. So it's going to be hard. The only
team that might be in position to make a trade right now is Vancouver, and maybe right now everybody's at their lowest value, so they're going to wait until they can replenish their value or something like that. Unless
if you want Evander Kane, you keep I'm just saying this is, nobody can make a trade right now. It's really hard.
Nobody's that desperate. Let's see here. Russ.
The Islanders are desperate, believe me.
Funky's asking about Jonathan Berggren averaging a point per game in the AHL for Grand Rapids. What's his NHL potential?
I haven't seen a lot of him. So he's a guy I have not tracked very well. So I'll have to look into it with him, but I'm looking in my notes. I don't think I have anything on him.
The Leafs should look at getting Valimaki from the Flames. And I like Valimaki as a prospect, and I know he's not playing a lot with Calgary, but That's not where I think the Leafs would be looking for a veteran guy, sort of like a replacement for what Zach Bogosian was last year. They need somebody who can kill penalties, and so not somebody who's gonna be costly or somebody, but a big right-handed tough defensive defenseman. If that guy is out there, then that's, I think, would be the fit. But Ben Sherratt, as somebody mentions, he's a lefty, so I don't think that fits. But he's gonna get Montreal a first round pick more than likely.
No, nobody's going to get a first round pick for Ben Sherratt.
Well, we'll see. There's not a lot of defensive free agents out there. Not a lot of rentals.
I bristle at that.
I don't think he should, but.
Well, don't worry, the Leafs will give a second.
No. I don't think the Leafs want Sherratt's not the guy that.
They'll give it 2 seconds. That'll annoy Mike.
Yeah, whatever. So, yeah, Sean Durzi, El Guapo, is playing well with LA. I mean, Durzi was a second round pick of the Leafs. He was traded in the Muzzin deal. You have to give up something, get something. He was an overager that when they drafted him, had a really good year in the OHL the following year. He's played a couple years in the American Hockey League. He's playing well. He's an offensive-minded guy.
Not the fastest guy, though.
No, and Cale Clegg, who got claimed on waivers by Montreal. Like I said, when I saw that he was placed on waivers, I said he's going to get claimed, and I hope Montreal took a good swing there because, I think he could be still salvageable.
They did take a good swing, and we'll see. We'll see if Durzi can do it over time. I'm kind of 50-50 in that camp.
Dan asks, what do you think happened with the Devils? They started off great. What do they need to do to fix things? Well, they're 500.
Yeah, they have Hughes every day. That's a start.
Yeah,
they definitely still need to play better defense. I don't know if PK Subban can play much better. Like that's you're.
Well, he can slew foot everybody. That might.
But he's a depreciating asset. They've been getting a lot out of Jesper Bratt. That's good. They haven't. I don't think Heischer's having the greatest year. I got to look at his numbers again, but I don't think he's doing exactly what you want him to do either.
Well, the guys who are scoring for them are Andreas Janssen, and he's having.
And what's his name? The rookie.
Dawson Mercer. Right now, Jesper Bratt is the leading scorer with 20 points. Andreas Janssen is leading the team with 9 goals. He's got 18 points. Mercer's got 14 points in 23 games. Heischer's got 3 goals and 11 assists.
Yeah, that's not going to cut it. He needs to do better. They need to figure out what Michael McLeod is or just cut bait with him. I thought it was smart to get Bastian back.
Yes.
I did, because he does fill a really good role and does have pretty good hands. Like McLeod's got 4 assists in 23 games. At this point, I would bring up Marian Studnik or a host of other guys that are better than he is.
Would you let Holtz just stay in the minors?
Yeah, I still have to let Holtz do it because he's not quite there yet. You really want him to be able to score goals, and I don't think he's quite there yet for the goal scoring. So you can't touch him yet. Maybe you do something later in the season. Ryan Graves has been an amazing pickup for them, though. Like, he's got 10 points. That's besides playing rock solid defense. They have a lot of things going for them. They just need like a winning streak. They're not that far out of it. It's typical Devils. They're not great. They're not horrible.
Yeah. Last question here, Johnny Red. Do the Rangers make any trades for a cup run?
Well,
now we have to say Shesterkin, the reports are that it was only a week. I'm really surprised based on, how much concern was.
Only a week, and then we'll see how he plays.
Right.
So if it's not anything bad with Shesterkin, then they could look towards the cup. I worry that they'll get Evander Kane. I do. I do think that's a possibility. But I'm trying to think around the league. Now, someone like Ben Sherratt would help them. That would be a good guy, a good player for them to trade for, because they need another. Like, if you could put in Ben Sherratt and get rid of, Patrick Nemeth and never have to play Jared Tenorti again, and Nemeth is your extra guy, that's an upgrade. Then you're talking, because right now it's amazing to me. Artemi Panarin, I think talent-wise, is one of the 5 best players in the league. I think he's better than Patrick Kane at this point.
Would you do Vitaly Kravtsov for a rental like Sherratt?
I don't want to necessarily do it for a rental.
Right.
I want to get somebody with a little bit of term, because you're going to get a player that you're going to try out either this year, the minute I make the deal, or as soon as next year. So I can't do it for a rental.
If San Jose retains salary on a Kane, would you do it for that?
I mean,
I know you don't want Kane at all.
Russ Cohen would not do it,
right.
But would the Rangers do it? They might.
Okay. All right. Great show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.